Okay, so get ready because today we are diving into a legal case that has seriously shaken up the music industry.
Oh, yeah. This one's a big one.
We're talking about Sean Combs,
Diddy.
P. Diddy, that's right. And this federal indictment, it's like something out of a movie.
It's intense,
Yeah.
right? What I find so fascinating about this is it's like we're getting this behind-the-scenes look at a world we usually only see the glitz and glam of.
Yeah, and we're not talking about some parking ticket here.
Yep.
We're talking racketeering, sex trafficking, forced labor,
Huh?
even kidnapping and arson are in this indictment.
Yeah, you don't see those words every day. And to really understand just how serious these accusations are, I think we need to kind of step back for a second and look at the kind of power Combs has built up over the years.
He's built an empire.
An empire on top of an empire. This indictment specifically names Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, and Combs Global. And these companies, they're not just about music.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Exactly. We're talking media, apparel, alcohol. It goes
Right.
on and on.
But before we go too far, let's be clear. This isn't just some tabloid gossip.
Oh, no, no, no.
This is from the United States District Court in the Southern District of New York. This is a serious legal document.
This is the real deal. And it gets even more disturbing when you start to understand the nature of these allegations. What we're seeing here is potentially a decades-long pattern of abuse and coercion. And tragically, women seem to be the primary targets here.
Okay, so let's get into some of the details. One of the most shocking things in this indictment is that Combs allegedly didn't act alone. There's this possible web of collaborators, employees, security staff assistants, even high-ranking supervisors, all potentially involved in facilitating and covering up these alleged crimes.
Right, and that's where this idea of a criminal enterprise comes into play.
Yeah.
It's not just about one person breaking the law. It's about an organization that's structured to operate outside the law. In this case, the indictment accuses Combs of leading this organization called the Combs Enterprise.
So like a corporation, but for illegal activities.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
So what was the purpose of this alleged Combs enterprise? Was it just money?
Well, the indictment says it was to increase Combs' power and reputation, to enrich its members, and to basically fulfill his personal desires. And what's really chilling is it suggests that anything was justified to achieve these goals, even breaking the law. And when we start talking about those personal desires, that's where we get into some of the most unsettling accusations in this indictment.
This is where it gets really heavy. The indictment describes something called freak-offs. And honestly, even reading about them, it was disturbing.
It's a dark picture they're painting. The indictment alleges that these freak-offs were basically elaborate, orchestrated sexual performances that involved women and male commercial sex workers. And Combs is accused of orchestrating these events, arranging travel, supplying drugs, and even using intimidation and threats to make sure everyone participated.
And it gets even worse. The indictment says that Combs allegedly recorded some of these encounters, sometimes without the participants' knowledge, and then used those recordings to control people.
Yeah, think about that for a second. The idea that someone could use their power not just for personal gain, but to manipulate and exploit others, it's really unsettling.
Absolutely. And that's not the only type of abuse described in this indictment. There are also allegations of physical and emotional abuse inflicted on women, hitting, kicking, dragging victims by their hair. It's horrifying.
And according to the indictment, these weren't just isolated incidents. Some of these assaults were witnessed by others, and some even resulted in injuries.
It's hard to believe when you think about Combs' public image.
Okay.
But wait, there's more. The indictment also alleges that Combs used firearms to intimidate and threaten others, including victims and witnesses. They even seized guns from his residences, including AR-15s with the serial number scratched off.
Wow, so it's not just committing crimes, but actively trying to cover them up. It's like this pattern. The indictment claims that Combs and members of this alleged enterprise used bribery and intimidation to silence victims and witnesses.
It's like this whole web of manipulation and control. The indictment even says that Combs would make up stories and record conversations to hide what he was doing.
It really makes you wonder how far someone would go to protect their image and their power. But we have to be very careful here. These are just allegations at this point, not proven facts.
Yeah.
Combs absolutely has the right to defend himself in court.
Right. Innocent until proven guilty. But with that said, let's look at the specific charges in this indictment, because they lay out the legal battles ahead. The first charge is racketeering conspiracy.
For racketeering, it sounds like something out of an old gangster movie, but it's a real charge, and it's serious.
Yeah.
Basically, it alleges that Combs was the leader of a criminal organization, that Combs Enterprise we were talking about, and that they engaged in a pattern of illegal activity.
The next charge is sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and they specifically mention a victim one.
This is a heavy charge. It alleges that Combs used force, fraud, or coercion to make someone engage in commercial sex acts. And later in the indictment, we get more details about this particular victim's experience, and it's really heartbreaking.
Then there's a charge of transportation to engage in prostitution.
Right, this one focuses on the act of transporting people across state lines for prostitution, which is a federal crime.
And we can't forget about those forfeiture allegations in the indictment.
Oh, those are important.
Yeah.
They mean that if Combs is found guilty, the government could take away his assets. We're talking houses, cars, money, a huge part of his fortune. So it's not just about prison time. It's about potentially losing a massive amount of wealth.
Wow. So we've gone from talking about hit songs and business to serious crimes. It's a lot to take in. What could all this mean for Combs' future?
Wait, that's the big question. If he's convicted on even one of these charges, he could be facing some serious time. Just the racketeering conspiracy charge alone could mean up to 20 years in prison.
20 years. That would change everything for him. And what about his business empire?
Yeah, it would have a huge impact, even if he's found not guilty. Just these allegations could be devastating for his reputation, his brand partnerships, anything he had planned for the future.
Yeah, we're already seeing the fallout on social media, and some organizations are distancing themselves. It's like everyone's trying to figure out what to do.
It's a reminder that your public image is really fragile, especially these days. This whole thing has forced people to reevaluate Combs, and it goes beyond him personally.
You're right. It makes you think about the people around him, employees, business partners, everyone in his circle. Were they aware of this?
If these allegations are true, it's hard to believe everyone was completely in the dark. It raises questions about, complicity and why people would turn a blind eye, especially when you're talking about this much power and money.
It's that whole thing about power corrupting.
Exactly. And also shines a light on the power dynamics in the entertainment industry. You have these aspiring artists, models, people who are young and trying to make it, and they might be more vulnerable to this kind of exploitation.
Yeah, that's a good point. The indictment, whether it meant to or not, gives us a look at this environment where people in charge might feel like they can get away with anything, use their power to silence anyone who speaks up. It's a reminder that even in glamorous industries, there can be this dark side, this potential for abuse that we can't ignore.
And this case could have a ripple effect. I wouldn't be surprised if it leads to more scrutiny of other powerful figures, not just in entertainment.
It's like they've opened a Pandora's box, and who knows what else might come out.
Exactly. This story is far from over.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
Okay, so let's talk strategy. What kind of legal approach do you think Combs' team might take here?
Well, I think they'll probably challenge the indictment on a few different levels. They might question the credibility of the witnesses or say that the evidence isn't strong enough. Remember, the prosecution has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt.
Do you think they'll try to work out a plea deal to avoid a long trial and maybe lessen the charges?
Oh yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Plea deals happen all the time.
Yeah.
Especially in cases like this with multiple serious charges. It's a way to minimize the risk.
But even if he avoids jail time, do you think Combs can ever really recover from this?
That's tough to say. Even if he's acquitted, these allegations could hang over him for years, affecting his image, making it harder for him to get opportunities. It's like a stain that's hard to get out.
This whole situation really underscores how crucial it is to listen to and believe survivors who come forward.
Absolutely. It takes incredible courage to speak out, especially when you're accusing someone as wealthy and influential as Sean Combs. Their voices deserve to be heard. Their stories need to be taken seriously.
It's a reminder that no matter how famous or rich you are, you're not above the law.
Yeah, this deep dive has taken us from the highs of the music industry to some pretty dark allegations.
Yeah, it really shows you the two sides of fame and fortune. But this case is bigger than just one celebrity. It brings up some important questions about, accountability, especially now with social media and everything.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we live in a world where news travels so fast, accusations can go viral in seconds, people form opinions based on trending hashtags. It's crazy.
So someone's reputation could be ruined before a trial even starts.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's the thing we're dealing with now, right? How do we balance the right to a fair trial with how quickly people judge online? It's like the court of public opinion is always in session.
Yeah, it's tricky. On the one hand, it's so important for victims to feel like they can speak up and for accusations to be brought to light. But on the other hand, rushing to judgment before we have all the facts can be really dangerous.
Absolutely. It's like walking a tightrope between transparency and fairness. And this Combs case, it shows just how complicated it gets when social media can shape public opinion so quickly.
This whole deep dive has made me think about how powerful information is. It can expose bad things, but it can also cause harm.
It's a double-edged sword, for sure. But this case also shows us that we need to approach these situations carefully to consider different perspectives and not just jump to conclusions.
Well, we've covered a lot today, from the indictment to the possible legal strategies to the bigger implications for the entertainment industry and beyond. It's been quite a deep dive.
Yeah, it has. We've gone from the highs of the music world to the dark side of fame and fortune.
And we've talked about power, influence, accountability in this digital age. It's a lot to think about.
Definitely. This story is far from over, and we'll keep following it. But for now, I think we've given everyone a lot to consider.
For sure. And no matter what happens with this particular case, it's a reminder of how much these types of allegations affect people's lives. We can't forget about the victims. Their stories deserve our attention and empathy. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back soon with another story and a fresh look at the things that matter most. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking those tough questions.